It all started the night my life stopped belonging to me. I was on stage, drowning in the screams of millions, bathed in lights that burned hotter than the sun. I thought I had everything: fame, fortune, love from people I'd never even met. But the truth, I was hollow until he found me. Lucien, the stranger who wasn't human, the demon who didn't ask for my soul, he claimed it. I should have run the moment I felt his eyes on me, but instead, I fell. And falling for him meant falling into a world of darkness, desire, and danger, where love was possession and safety didn't exist. Now, I'm no longer just the idol the world once adored. I'm the man carrying a demon's child, and this is how it happened. Before I take you into my story, make sure you hit subscribe, because once you enter this world, there's no turning back. The scream of fans outside was deafening, louder than 1,000 heartbeats, louder than thunder rolling through mountains. But to Kairo, it was nothing more than a faint echo. He stood alone in the green room, seconds before stepping on stage, dressed in black velvet and shimmering silver threads that caught light like stars. His face was flawless, painted perfection under soft makeup, dark lashes curling over tired eyes. His lips parted slightly as he breathed out slowly. He could hear the band tuning, the countdown beginning. But all he could think about was the dream from last night, and the night before, and the one before that. It always began the same way. A red sky with clouds that wept ash instead of rain. Black roses scattered across a dead land, the scent of burnt incense. And in the distance, a figure, tall, barefoot, dressed in darkness, watching him from beneath a shattered crown. His voice was never clear, yet it burrowed into Kairo's chest like a splinter of heat. "Sing again, little lamb, call me." Kairo had been dreaming of him for over 2 years now. And each time, the figure was getting closer. On stage, he was a god. No, more than that. He was untouchable, divine. People cried for him, fainted for him, begged to hear just one more verse. But no one really knew Kairo. He debuted at 19. Now at 25, he had scaled global charts, shattered records, starred in films, and earned the title of Asia's voice. He was the leader and heartbeat of Eclipse Asterisk, the most powerful idol group of the decade. And yet, he couldn't sleep, couldn't eat properly, couldn't explain why his soul felt like it was cracking, like some unseen thread was tugging him into a place no light could reach. His doctor said it was anxiety. His manager blamed overwork. His fans thought he was evolving. But Kairo knew better. It wasn't stress. It was Asterisk him, the man in his dreams, the one with eyes like starlight drenched in blood. It began with small things. Mirrors reflecting the wrong angle. Shadows lingering too long. His name whispered in rooms with no one else inside. The first real incident happened during a photo shoot in France. He was adjusting his collar in front of a full-length mirror. The room was quiet, too quiet, and his reflection blinked before he did. Kairo froze. His own eyes stared back, but they were not his. They were sharper, older, and burned gold at the edges. "You look more like him every day," the reflection whispered. Kairo's knees nearly gave out. When he looked again, the reflection was normal. His stylists blamed jet lag. He didn't speak of it again. But that night, in his hotel room with Paris lights outside his window, he saw him again. Not in a dream, but sitting on the edge of his bed. Kairo couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The man didn't speak, just sat there, glowing faintly in the dark like a god of night. His skin pale, almost silver under the moonlight. Black markings trailed across his neck and collarbone like ancient chains, pulsing faintly with an inner flame. And his eyes. Those eyes could unravel empires. "Who are you?" Kairo had managed, his voice barely above a whisper. The man smiled. "I'm Lucien, and you are my melody." Kairo awoke gasping, drenched in sweat. Except there was ash on his pillow, and black rose petals on the floor. From a flower that didn't exist. The following months were a blur. Tour after tour, city after city. The ghostly dreams evolved into visitations, lucid, terrifying, sometimes comforting. Lucien would appear beside him, sitting, watching, whispering ancient words Kairo didn't understand but somehow felt familiar. It wasn't just sleep. Lucien came to him in mirrors now, in reflections off puddles, the shimmer of a cymbal during rehearsals, once even in the darkened window of a moving train. And always those same golden eyes. "You're not going crazy," Lucien said once, appearing behind him as he stared into a bathroom mirror in Tokyo. "You're remembering." Kairo began to unravel. Not publicly, he was too well-trained for that, but internally something was changing. His music turned darker. His lyrics took on an eerie, sorrowful tone that made fans cry without knowing why. People said he was maturing. Critics called it artistic evolution. But Kairo knew the truth. He wasn't evolving. He was awakening. And Lucien was feeding it. One night, Kairo sat at the piano in his penthouse, composing alone. It was raining. Thunder crackled. The city pulsed like veins beneath his floor-to-ceiling windows. His fingers moved on their own, playing a melody he didn't remember learning. And then Lucien was there. Physically. No mirrors, no dreams. He emerged from the corner of the room like smoke solidifying into flesh. Towering, lithe, dressed in black that shimmered like the night sky. He walked silently until he stood behind Kairo, pressing cold fingers to his shoulder. "I like that," Lucien whispered. Kairo shuddered. This isn't real." "It is. It's more real than your entire career. Your voice called me, Kairo, and I came." "Why?" Lucien smiled faintly. "Because your soul doesn't belong to this world alone." From that night forward, everything changed. Lucien stopped disappearing. He followed Kairo everywhere, like a shadow stitched to his soul. He didn't always speak. Sometimes he would just be there, sitting across the room, leaning in doorways, watching concerts from the edge of the stage, invisible to others but tangible to Kairo. And Kairo started to crave him. It terrified him. The demon didn't touch him. Not until Kairo let him. But when he did, when their hands met, when fingers curled into his jaw, when Lucien's mouth whispered across his throat in the dark, Kairo stopped feeling like a man. He felt like an offering. "Why me?" he asked again once, curled beneath silk sheets, chest bare and eyes burning with questions. Lucien sat beside him, legs crossed like a king from some ancient tomb. "Because you were born from a line that once bargained with us. A long-forgotten pact, traded salvation for a voice. That voice flows through your blood. You are a vessel of sorrow, of beauty, and death." Kairo stared at him. "So I was, never meant to be human." "You're more than human," Lucien said, his gaze softening for the first time. "You are the song that opens the gate, my gate." It should have horrified him. It didn't. Kairo was too far gone. He stopped questioning Lucien's presence, began anticipating it, looking for him in the crowd, whispering his name into hotel pillows at night. And Lucien answered every time. Sometimes with words, sometimes with warmth, sometimes with fire. But always with *want*. They never called it love. But in the hush between breaths, in the broken sighs, in the way Kairo leaned into Lucien's chest after long shows, fingers trembling from too many eyes, it felt like it. Lucien would hold him in shadows, unseen, and whisper, "Let the world worship you, but you belong to me." And Kairo would whisper back, "I know." Kairo should have said something, should have pulled away, should have shut the door and never opened it again. But how do you run from the only thing that has ever truly heard you? Lucien didn't need to ask permission to exist in Kairo's world anymore. He didn't knock. He didn't announce his arrival. He simply was, a breath of shadow near the curtains, a coolness in the sheets before Kairo even realized he was in bed, a voice in the corner of the room before the lights even flickered. And Kairo welcomed it. He told himself it was curiosity, fascination, the allure of danger. But the truth came quietly one night, tucked between stillness and a thunderstorm. Kairo sat alone, drenched in the moonlight that poured through his bedroom window, wearing a loose tank and silk pants, face bare, eyes raw from crying. Lucien appeared behind him, no flourish, no drama, just silent presence. "You're not sleeping," Lucien said softly, almost like concern. "Again." Kairo didn't turn. "I'm afraid that if I fall asleep, you'll vanish." A long pause. And then the weight of Lucien's arms came down around him, lightly, almost afraid. "You summon me," he said lowly. "I never leave those who summon me." "Do you stay because you have to?" "I stay because I want to." Kairo turned his head slightly. "Then, stay tonight, not in the mirror, not in the corner, not like some ghost." He held his breath. Lucien said nothing. And then the world went cold, but not painfully. A breeze moved across his skin like liquid silk. When he blinked again, Lucien was there, sitting beside him, real, whole, dressed in soft black robes, barefoot, eyes dimmed to a gentle, honeyed gold. Kairo reached out before he could think. His hand trembled as it brushed Lucien's wrist. The demon didn't pull away. Instead, he tilted his head and studied Kairo like he was the last language in the world left to learn. "Are you afraid of me?" Lucien asked, voice low. Kairo's throat was dry. "I'm afraid of what I feel when you look at me." Lucien's smirk faded. "I've existed for centuries," he murmured. "I've seen emperors fall to madness for less than what I feel now." Kairo closed his eyes, overwhelmed. "What is this?" he whispered. "A curse," Lucien said. "Or a song, or a promise made before your soul was born." And before Kairo could answer, Lucien leaned forward. Their foreheads touched. A kiss didn't follow. Not yet. Instead, a warmth bloomed through Kairo's chest so strong, so sudden, he nearly sobbed. For the first time in years, he felt safe. The change didn't happen all at once. It was in pieces, threads. Kairo's music began to shift. Every melody he wrote in secret started bleeding the same tone, low, hypnotic, threaded with an ache that wasn't his alone. He no longer performed for fame. He sang for him. Lucien. And the demon, invisible to all but him, watched every stage, every rehearsal, eyes glowing like wildfire through smoke. "I can feel you when I sing," Kairo said once, panting after a late-night set. Lucien leaned down, his breath grazing Kairo's throat. "That's because when you sing, you're closer to me than any prayer could bring." Kairo didn't flinch when Lucien's fingers traced down his spine. He arched into the touch. He was past fear. He was addicted. It wasn't lust, not entirely. But it wasn't innocence either. It was something else. Possessive, inevitable, older than time. Kairo began to sense Lucien's presence even before it happened, when the air changed, when his heartbeat slowed, when the shadows in the room thickened, when mirrors blurred at the edges like wet paint. And Lucien was always there, answering a call Kairo didn't realize he was making. "I miss you," Kairo whispered one day. Lucien didn't answer. He simply stepped from the corner of the rehearsal hall and took Kairo's hand in his own. And for the first time, Kairo kissed him. It wasn't sweet. It was hungry. And Lucien, for all his power, gasped like a dying star. Their nights bled together. Some were silent. Lucien would lay beside Kairo, eyes closed, breathing shallow, as if pretending to be something he was. Human, mortal, touchable. Other nights were fevered. Kairo would wake from dreams of fire and reach for him, breathless, trembling, desperate for something he didn't have words for. Lucien always knew. He would press Kairo into the bed, hand on his throat, never tight, just there. "I could ruin you," Lucien would growl. Kairo always answered the same. "Then do it." They still didn't call it love. Lucien never said the word, not even when Kairo clung to him during a panic attack, sobbing against his chest as rain battered the windows like drums of war. "I don't belong here," Kairo whispered that night, voice cracking. I don't know who I am anymore. Lucien stroked his hair, gently, like tamming a storm. You are mine, he whispered. That's all that matters. The final break came in the form of a song. Kairo wrote it alone. No producers, no composers, just him, a piano, and the ache Lucien had carved into him. He didn't even title it. He just recorded it. 3 minutes and 17 seconds. When the audio engineer heard it, he cried. When the studio executives heard it, they said it was haunting. When the fans heard it, they said it changed them. But only Kairo and Lucien knew what it really was. It was a summoning, a vow, a surrender. That night, Lucien didn't appear in the mirror, didn't fade in from shadow. He emerged fully through flame. Right in front of Kairo. Eyes glowing, body burning with magic, wings made of ash and smoke trailing behind him. Kairo didn't flinch. He stepped forward, and Lucien grabbed him by the waist, crushing him into a kiss so deep, so primal, it nearly shattered the room. This time, there were no words. Only fire, hands, teeth, breath. Lucien marked him that night. Not with pain. With belonging. With truth. Kairo had never been human. He was made for this. For him. By the time dawn rose, painting the sky gold and violet, Kairo lay breathless on scorched sheets, sweat beading on his collarbone, his heart strangely calm. Lucien was beside him, not as a demon, but as something else. Something softer. More his. You'll ruin me, Kairo whispered. Lucien pulled him close, fingers stroking the nape of his neck. I already have. The morning after felt like waking in a different lifetime. Kara stirred slowly beneath black silk sheets, skin humming with echoes of touch and heat. The sunlight tried to reach through the heavy curtains but barely kissed the room, as if even daylight feared intruding on what had taken place within those walls. Lucien was still there. His form lay stretched across the bed beside him, one arm tucked under his head, the other tracing silent patterns against Kara's hip. He wasn't breathing like humans do, but there was a rhythm, slow and primal, like the earth itself pulsing through his chest. Kara didn't speak. He only turned to face him, brushing strands of obsidian hair from Lucien's cheek. For a moment, the demon looked so heartbreakingly still, so Raoul Ustarusk, that Kara forgot what he was. But Lucien opened his eyes. Those golden irises ignited instantly, warm, sharp, and endless. You watch me sleep, he murmured, voice lower than usual. You don't sleep, Kara whispered back. Lucien smirked. No, but you do, and when you do, you hum. Kara blinked. What? Lucien's eyes darkened with something far too gentle for a creature of his kind. Like a song trapped inside your throat. You hum like your soul is still singing even when your body rests. Kara laughed softly, embarrassed. You make me sound fragile. No, Lucien said, sitting up slightly. I make you sound like mine. That day, Kara canceled everything. The schedule, the shoots, the fitting, the interview with the Chinese fashion magazine. His manager panicked, but he didn't care. He locked the doors, closed the curtains, shut off the world. He needed to understand. Because ever since that night, ever since Lucien had finally claimed him in full, something had been different. He wasn't just exhausted. He felt wired, electrified. His reflection shifted when he stared too long. His eyes pulsed with unnatural light beneath dim rooms. And when he stood near anything made of glass, it trembled, as if resonating with some frequency too deep for humans to detect. Kara stood shirtless in front of the mirror that evening, staring at the faint black lines that had begun trailing down his spine. Like ink, like veins, like music notes burned into his flesh. They hadn't been there yesterday. Lucien, he whispered. And the room answered instantly. The demon appeared through shadow, not dramatically, just there, as if he'd always been behind the curtain. You called. Kara turned to him, exposing his back, his voice tight. What is this? Lucien approached slowly. He placed a cold hand against Kara's bare back, fingers brushing the markings like a pianist tuning a new instrument. "They're the beginning," Lucien said softly. "Beginning of what?" "Your body remembering what it truly is." Kara's mouth dried. "I thought I was human, just cursed." Lucien met his gaze in the mirror. "No, Kara, you were born with humanity, but you were never of it." The nights grew heavier. Lucien stayed more often now, sometimes silently packing, sometimes reading ancient scripts in the corner while Kara slept, and sometimes simply watching. And Kara, for all his stubborn pride, began to need him. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't right. But when Lucien touched him, the world made sense. The noise stopped, the ache quieted. His body was beginning to change in ways he couldn't explain. He was stronger, his senses sharper. His voice had grown so haunting that even he couldn't listen to recordings of himself without feeling chills. But there were other changes too. More intimate ones. One night, Kara woke with a scream locked in his throat. Not from a nightmare, but from pleasure so sharp, so deep, it nearly broke him. Lucien was above him, eyes glowing, hands glowing faintly where they rested on Kara's chest and thighs. "You're not ready," he murmured, voice strangled with restraint. "But you're close." Kara reached up, grabbing his face. "Then make me ready." Lucien growled. "I don't want to break you." Kara's legs wrapped around him, breath hot against the demon's cheek. "Then break me gently." Lucien's possessiveness began to show more and more. He didn't like anyone touching Kara. Not staff, not stylists, not backup dancers. Even the briefest contact made his eyes darken, and his voice drop an octave. "You don't get to be touched by mortals now," he hissed once, after Kara's co-actor in a music video scene kissed him on the cheek. "It was scripted," Kara argued, but his breath hitched when Lucien pressed him against the dressing room wall, fingers gripping his jaw. "Then rewrite the script." Kara swallowed. And he did. But with passion came pain. Lucien was not of this world, and Kara, despite his bloodline, was still of flesh. And some nights, his body ached in strange ways. His skin burned, his stomach twisted, his dreams bled red and gold. And one morning, he awoke to find himself in a pool of silver-black liquid. Not blood. Not entirely. Lucien appeared in seconds, and for the first time, he looked terrified. "You're shifting too fast," he whispered. Kara's lip trembled. "What's happening to me?" Lucien gripped his shoulders. "You're not just mine anymore. You're becoming mine." Kara stared at him. "Tell me what that means." Lucien pressed their foreheads together. "It means you're carrying something that doesn't belong to this world." The world no longer felt the same. Something had shifted the very night Lucien stepped into Kara's world, uninvited, unrepentant, yet irrevocably entangled. Kara couldn't remember the last time he had breathed without wondering if golden eyes watched from the shadows. He couldn't sleep without dreaming of them, those blazing irises, split pupils glowing like serpents, devouring him in silence. Lucien hadn't returned since that rooftop encounter, not in the way Kara hoped. But he was there. Every flickering studio light, every sudden breeze on his nape, every shadow that stretched a little too far in the hallway, he was there. The demon haunted him like an unspoken melody, unfinished and maddening. Kara tried to stay grounded in rehearsals, in photoshoots, in the ever-spinning chaos of idle life. His fans still screamed his name with devotion, unaware of the ghost that curled in his lungs, stealing air each time he remembered the sinful curve of Lucien's smirk. Until one evening, under a shroud of rain and dying city noise, Lucien returned. Not with ceremony, not with threat, but with silence. He stood in Kara's dressing room, reclining casually in the leather chair like it belonged to him, like he belonged there. Kara froze in the doorway, heart leaping into his throat so violently it hurt. "You've gotten thinner," Lucien murmured, his voice the texture of molten dusk. "Busy pretending you're still untouched." Kara didn't speak, couldn't. Lucien rose, slow like smoke unfurling, the kind that promised ruin. You didn't call me. I didn't know I could, Kairo whispered, voice smaller than he wanted. Lucien's lips twitched. Yuxdov, I hear the silent things. A shiver rippled down Kara's spine. Lucien stepped closer, fingers reaching out, not to touch, not yet, but hovering. Like permission was still a game they played. Why are you here? Kara asked. What do you want? Lucien tilted his head. You. The word rang far too simple for the depth it carried. You don't even know me. Lucien's laugh cold, amused, ancient. I know the layers you shed when no one's looking. I know what trembles beneath that crafted smile. I've tasted your fear and your desire, both offered freely. You think that isn't knowing someone. You scared me, Kara confessed, chest heaving. You still do. Good. Lucien closed the distance, breath mingling now. Fear sharpens hunger. You've always known what I am, but you still looked at me with want. The tension cracked. Kara lunged first. Their mouths collided like thunder meeting ocean, a storm within a storm. Kara's fists curled in Lucien's jacket, and Lucien's hands buried into his hair like claws clutching glass. Kara felt himself pressed into the vanity, cold edge biting his spine, Lucien's kiss devouring logic and fear alike. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was years of loneliness clawing free, of secrets breaking the skin, of something darker than love blooming from despair. Lucien didn't undress him. He peeled him open like scripture. And Kara surrendered. Not because he was weak. Because some demons didn't demand submission. They deserved it. That night, Lucien marked him. Not with claws. With promise. A promise unspoken yet binding. One that Kara would only understand later, when his body began to ache in strange places, when the world began to smell too sharp, too overwhelming, and when his reflection stopped feeling like his own. But that revelation was still weeks away. For now, he let Lucien possess him again and again, between stolen hours, in hotel corridors, behind velvet curtains of rehearsals, like the world would never find out, like the sacred space they'd created wasn't doomed from the start. It wasn't love. Not yet. Lucien didn't say such fragile words. He didn't whisper, I love you, into Kara's hair. He didn't write poetry on his spine or sing lullabies into his mouth. But he stayed. Every time Kara reached out in the dark, Lucien came. No matter the hour. No matter the danger. Even when Kara didn't ask. Lucien had bled kingdoms for less. One night, Kara asked what he truly was. The question trembled from his lips while Lucien traced patterns on his bare shoulder. Lucien didn't answer immediately, only kissed the place where neck met shoulder and said softly, I was the first shadow god cast away. Are you evil? I am what happens when good is ignored for too long. And Kara felt something shift. Not in Lucien. In himself. The first sign came weeks later, subtle, almost dismissible. Kairo's scent changed. He began waking with a metallic taste in his mouth. His body felt heavier but not tired. He craved warmth in unfamiliar ways. When Lucien touched him, it wasn't pain or pleasure, it was grounding. Like only Lucien could anchor his existence now. Then came the dreams. Flashes of fire, crimson silk, a heartbeat echoing from somewhere inside him that wasn't entirely his. Lucien noticed before he did. You're different, the demon muttered one night, pulling away from their embrace. Your aura, it's shifting. Kairo froze. He nervously tried to deny, but felt like words were stuck in mouth when felt the intense gaze of Lucien. He knows he couldn't hide for any longer. The silence that followed Kairo's whispered confession wasn't empty. It was thick, it pulsed like a second heartbeat inside Lucien's chest, a stillness so loud it drowned the thunder outside. The echo of Kairo's words still floated in the air like a spell left hanging. Lucien, I think I'm pregnant. Lucien didn't speak. He just stared at him, those eyes, no longer just demonic, but something else now. Something older, something deeper, like a storm that hadn't reached land yet. Kairo couldn't bear it. He rose from the bed slowly, his arms wrapping around his own stomach as if guarding it from the world, from fear, maybe even from Lucien. "I didn't want it to happen this way," Kairo whispered, his voice trembling. "But I can feel it. My body's changing. I don't even know if it's supposed to be possible, but—" Lucien was suddenly in front of him, hands cupping his face, fingers trembling as they brushed his cheeks. "Don't run from me," he breathed, voice uncharacteristically broken. "Say it again." "I'm pregnant." Lucien's knees hit the floor. It was involuntary, not submission, not worship, but something that transcended both. His hands slowly traced down, resting gently against Kairo's stomach. Kairo stiffened. "What are you?" Lucien's voice was low, reverent. "There's a part of me inside you, growing, breathing, living." And then he laughed, and it wasn't cruel. It was terrified. "A demon isn't supposed to create," Lucien murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "I was made to destroy, to ruin, to corrupt. This goes against everything I am." Kairo's fingers shakily moved to his head, trying to make him stand. "Then tell me, Lucien, is it a curse or a blessing?" Lucien rose slowly, eyes glowing like molten ruby. "You're not cursed, Kairo, you're sacred." For the first time since the announcement, Kairo sobbed, not from fear, not from guilt, but from the terrifying weight of being seen. From the fact that the demon didn't flee, didn't shun him, didn't deny what was growing inside. Lucien embraced him like he was the only light in hell. "I will protect you," Lucien swore. "I will protect both of you." Days turned into weeks, and the world outside remained unaware of the miracle blooming within Kairo's body. He had to fake fevers, cancel shows, cancel tour. The company was panicking, fans were begging for his return. But none of that mattered when the person he loved was literally creating life inside him. Lucien became more territorial with each passing day. He wouldn't let any human doctor touch Kairo. Instead, he summoned ancient beings, midwives of the underworld, deities disguised as crows, creatures that once tended to succubi and creatures of creation. Kairo wasn't sure whether to be scared or grateful. The mornings began with Lucien brushing his fingers across the barely there bump, talking to it, humming spells to strengthen it, whispers in an ancient demonic tongue that made Kairo's skin shiver and heart melt. "I didn't know demons could be gentle," Kairo teased one evening, his head resting on Lucien's lap. Lucien smirked. "I didn't know humans could carry my child." Kairo chuckled. "Fair enough." But not everything was peaceful. Something was watching them. It started with shadows that didn't belong, whispers that were Lucien's, dreams that turned to nightmares where his child was stolen from his womb, where Lucien was bleeding from the eyes, where heaven and hell collided and swallowed them whole. Lucien noticed. Of course he did. "You're being hunted," Lucien admitted one night, voice tight as he paced the room like a caged beast. "The pregnancy has marked you. There are forces in both the heavenly and infernal realms that will never accept a union between an idol and a demon." "And what will they do?" Kairo asked, calmer than he should have been. Lucien stopped walking. "They will try to kill you," he said simply. "Or worse, they will try to take what's inside you." Kairo's hand flew protectively to his stomach. "But they'll have to go through me first." And from that moment, Lucien changed. He stopped hiding. His wings, which once only unfolded during moments of lust or war, were now often on full display, black and massive, sharp-edged, occasionally dripping with blood after returning from errands. He started sleeping curled around Kairo like a dragon guarding treasure, his body a wall of warmth and magic and terror. Kairo didn't question it, not when he woke up to bloodied sigils drawn on every window, not when he caught Lucien whispering threats into shadows, not when he dreamt of fire and heard Lucien's voice calling him back. Because he knew now. He carried more than a life inside him. He carried legacy, a union of chaos and beauty, a child born not just of flesh and blood, but of starlight and shadows. One stormy evening, Kairo woke up gasping. Not from pain, but movement. It fluttered inside him, soft and sharp all at once. Lucien was already at his side in seconds, his eyes wide. "What is it? What's wrong?" Kairo took his hand and pressed it to his belly. "Feel." A pause, then. Lucien's breath caught. And for the first time in his immortal existence, he cried. Kairo's fingers trembled as he clasped the edge of the sink, pale knuckles clenched tight. The test rested silently on the counter before him, positive, unchanging. No matter how many times he looked at it, no matter how long he stood there in that hotel room bathroom, the result remained the same. He was pregnant, and the one responsible wasn't human. Lucien. The name pulsed through him like a forbidden hymn. The demon who had claimed his nights, stolen his fears, kissed him until he forgot the pain, and now carved himself into Kairo's very body. He couldn't stop shaking. But it wasn't fear, not anymore. It was yearning, longing, a craving that reached beyond physical. Because even with this terrifying shift in his body, even as he stood on the brink of the unknown, all he wanted was him. All he needed was Lucien's presence, the way his eyes burned only for him, the way his hands soothed and destroyed with equal intensity. The door to the bathroom creaked open. "I felt your heartbeat spike." Kairo looked up. Lucien was already there, emerging like a phantom from the darkness of the suite, his long coat sliding off his shoulders, crimson eyes glowing like cinders. His gaze flicked immediately to the test on the counter. No words were spoken. None were needed. Lucien's hand reached forward, brushing away the test, and instead cupping Kairo's stomach. His palm was warm, feverishly so, and Kairo gasped at the intimate sensation, the connection that sparked from within. "So it begins," Lucien murmured. "You knew," Kairo whispered, voice hollow, "didn't you?" Lucien nodded. "It's not just a child," he said softly, his tone unusually reverent. "It's a merging of realms. You carry the impossible, and every demon in hell will feel its heartbeat when it grows." A beat passed. "And they'll want it." Kairo's breath hitched. "Then take it out of me," he said, tears filling his lashes. "If it's going to put me in danger, if it'll drag me into hell, then I don't want it. I don't want them to find me." Lucien froze. His hand didn't move. His expression remained blank. And then, "No," he said darkly. "I will burn the realms before I let them near you." His arms wrapped around Kairo then, tight, possessive, trembling with a wrath only hell could contain. He pressed his forehead to Kairo's, eyes gleaming like rubies cracked with fire. "You don't understand, little light," Lucien whispered, voice raw. "You carry more than my air. You carry a piece of my soul." Kairo let out a soft gasp. His tears spilled freely now, but they weren't of pain. They weren't of fear. They were of something dangerously close to love. Weeks later, the world had begun to shift. Subtly at first, quiet anomalies, flickering shadows in mirrors, whispers in dreams. But as Kairo's pregnancy advanced, so too did the veil between realms begin to weaken. Demons lingered at the edges of cities. Storms brewed over stages where Kairo performed. People around him began to notice the strange pull in the air, the way lights flickered when he sang, the way time felt too slow whenever his fingers brushed his belly. Lucien had started keeping Kairo in a heavily warded estate on the outskirts of town, a sprawling Gothic manor veiled in glamours and old-world enchantments. It was surrounded by whispering trees and silent fog, with walls that pulsed faintly with demon blood magic. Safe, for now. But the danger crept in nonetheless. One night, as Kairo lay asleep, bathed in moonlight, a blood-red seal lit up beneath the bed. Lucien burst into the room in a blur of black mist, his blade forming from smoke in his hand. A scream tore from Kairo's throat, but Lucien had already impaled the figure emerging from the summoning seal. A demon, lesser rank, claws still extended. "Too close," Lucien snarled. "Too fucking close." He turned, gathering Kairo into his arms as if he were porcelain. The sheets clung to Kairo's sweat-drenched skin, his belly now visibly swelling beneath the thin fabric. The demon inside him was growing faster than any mortal child would. They'll keep coming, Lucien growled, voice laced with fury and desperation. They smell my blood, they smell what you carry. Kairo's arms wrapped around his neck. Then don't leave me alone, he whispered. Lucien's breath hitched. He looked down at him, hair tousled, eyes glistening, breath uneven. I won't, he promised, even if it means I bleed for it. That night, after the wards were reinforced and the demon's corpse reduced to ash, Lucien returned to Kairo's bed, not to sleep, but to stay close. Protective. Possessive. But something had shifted in the air. Kairo reached for him. His hand slid across Lucien's chest, fingertips dancing over his scars, tracing the inhuman warmth beneath his skin. Lucien froze, crimson eyes watching every motion with reverent restraint. Do you still want me? Kairo asked softly. Like this? Lucien's body trembled beneath his touch. Kairo, he rasped, I have never wanted you more. Their kiss was slow, aching, a deep pull that started from the belly and bloomed outward like fire catching silk. Lucien's touch had changed, gentler now, reverent, like every inch of Kairo's skin was sacred. His hands cradled him, not as something fragile, but as something holy. Clothes were shed, skin met skin. Lucien worshipped him with his mouth, trailing kisses over his swollen abdomen, whispering to the child within like a prayer, before making his way back up to Kairo's lips. Mine, Lucien breathed against his skin. You are mine, and now they'll see it, all of them. Hell itself will tremble when they realize the most sacred thing in existence chose to love me. And when he entered him, slow, deep, reverent, Kairo arched with a sound that only angels should make. Their union was no longer just desire. It was defiance. It was a vow to the realms. This love would not be broken. Not by war. Not by fear. Not by destiny. Lucien had always been chaos and fire, but now, as Kairo lay half-curled in the center of silken sheets, his form bathed in the soft gold light of the bedside lamp, Lucien was reduced to quiet devotion. He knelt beside the idol like a worshipper before an altar, his clawed fingers hesitant, afraid to disturb the sanctity of what grew within the man he now called his own. A child. Their asterisk child. Kairo's breathing was even, but his eyes held storms, twin orbs of confusion and wonder and 1,000 unspoken fears. Is it real? He whispered, more to himself than anyone, one hand pressing lightly against his bare abdomen as if waiting to feel life stir beneath. Lucien, is it really there? Lucien's voice was low, reverent. It is. Your body sings to mine. The bond has deepened, Kairo. It's not just a soul link anymore, it's creation. His voice broke around the edges of the word. He had tasted wars, centuries, dimensions folded into one black wing, but nothing had prepared him for the quiet reverence that overtook him when he heard the first whisper of a heartbeat inside Kairo. The demon leaned forward and pressed his lips against the smooth skin just below Kairo's navel. His lips lingered there longer than necessary, not out of lust, but out of awe. You're carrying my legacy, he murmured, but more than that, you're carrying us. Kairo's fingers tangled into Lucien's silken hair as if to anchor himself from floating away. The silence between them brimmed with a new kind of intimacy, thicker than desire, more profound than any climax they had ever shared. But even as love deepened, danger brewed beyond the veil. Lucien had kept his realm sealed ever since Kairo had become his mate, but the demon courts were not deaf to change. They felt the shift in power, the change in Lucien. A king who once reigned unchallenged was now tethered to a fragile human body growing with something unnatural, a child never before born of such a union. Orovix, the firstborn of the abyss, watched from afar, crimson eyes brimming with venom. He dares to pollute the infernal line, the demon hissed, claws scraping down obsidian arms as his mouth twisted into contempt. A child with a human soul will inherit his crown. I will tear it from that abomination's belly before the eclipse. Back in the human world, Kairo began to feel it too, the creeping chill of being watched. The air around him would still suddenly during dance practice. Shadows moved in the mirror just behind his reflection. Once, while recording a song in the studio, The lights flickered to red, and a low growl echoed through the monitors, though no one else seemed to hear it. Lucien noticed the changes first. Kairo had grown more sensitive, not just emotionally but physically. His body began to respond differently, touches that once left him breathless now burned. His moods shifted like storms over ocean tides. And at night, when Lucien held him close, Kairo's back arched into him instinctively, his skin humming with fevered heat. There was something primal inside him now, sensual, needy. It was no longer just Kairo who sought Lucien. It was the being growing inside him too. Their bond had fused so thoroughly that when Lucien kissed him, it felt like three hearts thudded in rhythm, tangled in flame. One night, the desire became unbearable. Kairo sat on Lucien's lap in their hidden manor, back pressed to the demon's chest, legs spread open with Lucien's palms gliding down his thighs. "I don't know what's happening to me," Kairo confessed breathlessly, his voice pitched in need, lips swollen from kisses they hadn't yet stopped. "You're becoming mine in ways even I didn't predict," Lucien rasped into the idol's neck, biting down gently. "The child inside you has my essence, and now it's awakening you to what I am." Kairo shivered. "I want more, every part of you, even the parts you try to hide from me." Lucien turned him in his arms, lips meeting in a kiss that tasted like lightning. "Then take me," he growled. "No more fear. Let me show you how a demon worships his mate." What followed was not just sex, it was surrender. Kairo's body trembled beneath Lucien as the demon held him possessively, thrusts slow, deep, protective. The pregnancy didn't make their love gentler, it made it asterisk more. Every breath, every movement, every gasp was sacred. Kairo cried out as Lucien drove him to the edge over and over again, cradling his swollen belly as if it were a crown. His hands caressed the curve reverently, whispering words in an ancient tongue that made the child within flutter. Their climax was not loud but blinding, a flood of emotion that broke them both open. Kairo sobbed into Lucien's neck, overwhelmed, overstimulated, but safe, so utterly safe. Later, as the moonlight filtered in, Lucien curled around him from behind, palm resting protectively over the slight curve of his stomach. "They're coming for you," he said quietly. "For him." Kairo didn't need to ask who. He only whispered, "Let them come." Lucien smiled against his nape. "That's my queen." But Kairo's dreams that night weren't peaceful. He stood in a red field, skis cracked with lightning, and a voice, feminine and cold, echoed through the clouds. "You carry a demon's air, but you are not of his kind, you will never be enough." When he awoke, blood trickled from his nose, and the sheets beneath were stained with flame. Lucien was already by his side, eyes wild, wings unfurled. "You dreamed of the crone, didn't you?" he asked grimly. Kairo nodded weakly. She said, "I'll never be enough." Lucien kissed his brow with fury. "Then I'll burn her realm to ash to prove otherwise." But what neither of them realized was that the child within Kairo, barely a few weeks into forming, was already sensing it all. The fear, the love, the hate, and most dangerously, the power. In the mirror beside their bed, a crack appeared, and inside it something blinked. Kairo sat at the window, one hand on the swell of his stomach, the other pressed against the cool glass as rain streaked down in ribbons. His eyes, once so full of excitement for each new stage of life, now held a storm of questions. The pregnancy had advanced faster than any human standard. Already, his body ached, stretched, throbbed with an unfamiliar pressure that came not only from within, but from the world trying to claw its way inside. Lucien's realm, the underworld he once ruled with merciless elegance, had grown unsettled since the conception. Whispers of a coming heir, of forbidden creation, had stirred discontent. Not all demons bowed before love, and certainly not before an idol-turned mate who dared carry the bloodline of their feared king. Lucien entered the room without a sound, his black robes trailing behind him like shadows. His eyes immediately fell upon Kairo, and for a moment, the storm in his expression faded into something gentler, something painfully human. "You should be resting," Lucien murmured, crossing the room in seconds, kneeling before Kairo's bare legs. He pressed his lips to the idol's abdomen almost reverently. "The child is growing fast, too fast for your body to keep up." Kairo's fingers wove into Lucien's hair, gripping tighter than he meant to. "Then slow it down, Lucien," he whispered. "You're a demon, can't you do something? I don't care how, just don't let me lose this." Lucien's breath stilled. He didn't speak for a long moment. "You won't lose this. You won't lose me," he finally said, lifting his gaze, eyes glowing crimson with a dark promise. "If hell tries to take you, I'll burn the throne I once sat on. If heaven comes for you, I'll devour its gates myself." That was the thing with Lucien. He didn't make promises with hope. He made them with fury, obsession, and the power of a king who bowed only to one. But it wasn't enough. Something had shifted. Kairo felt it each night, an invisible thread tightening in the air, a threat slithering at the edge of his dreams. One night the pain came sharp and sudden. Not contractions, but something else. Dark energy surged through the halls, shattering chandeliers, making mirrors scream. Lucien was at his side before the echo of his scream even faded. "The wards are breaking," Lucien growled, arms curling protectively around Kairo's body. "Something has crossed over." They fled the manor before the walls collapsed. In the demon's private sanctum, hidden beyond layers of magic and sealed in blood, Lucien set Kairo down on a bed of obsidian velvet, etched with sigils of protection. He placed both hands on Kairo's abdomen and whispered in the ancient tongue, pressing power into his body, steadying the heartbeat of the child within. Kairo whimpered softly, his hand reaching for Lucien's. "I'm scared." Lucien kissed his knuckles. "Then let me show you the only thing stronger than fear." His mouth captured Kairo's desperately, hungrily. It was not just affection, it was grounding. A tether between realms, between soul and body. His kisses moved lower, grazing Kairo's belly, whispering apologies to their unborn child, and deeper still. What followed wasn't rushed, it was reverent. Lucien worshipped him, every inch, every tremble, every broken gasp. His hands danced along the curve of Kairo's thighs, his mouth tasting sweat and salt and skin, until Kairo was melting beneath him, trembling and needy and unafraid for the first time in days. When Lucien finally joined him, slowly, deliberately, it felt like something ancient had been sealed. Their bodies moved in rhythm, a symphony of heat and need, not just for pleasure, but for survival. To remind themselves they were still here, still one. Kairo clung to him as though the world could vanish the moment they let go. "Lucien." "I know," Lucien whispered, rocking deeper into him. "I feel it too." They didn't speak again for a while. Only soft moans, whispered names, kisses that ached with meaning filled the air. When the stars faded into dawn, Kairo lay curled against Lucien's chest, his fingers tracing the faint scars along his demon's spine. "Why did they betray you?" he asked quietly. Lucien looked down, golden eyes heavy with centuries of silence. "Because I chose love, and love is the one thing demons aren't supposed to feel, at least not the way I feel for you." "Then let them come," Kairo murmured. "Let them see what love can destroy." Lucien smiled at that. But the storm wasn't waiting for their invitation. It was already knocking. The days began to blur. What once was a whirlwind of passion and stolen kisses had now solidified into something deeper, dangerous yet tender. Kairo's body was changing rapidly, not just physically, but spiritually. Something inside him pulsed with more than just life. It shimmered with ancient magic, a seed not just of Lucien's lineage, but of a bond that defied celestial laws. Lucien was no longer the untouchable demon king who loomed in shadows. He stayed close, always within arm's reach, always watching. His palm found Kairo's lower back when they walked through his mansion halls, fingers curling with possessive heat. He wrapped his wings around the singer when Kairo tried to sleep, whispering incantations to shield him from spirits that prowled with growing boldness in the underworld. It wasn't just lust anymore. It was something ruinous, deep, something holy and unholy at once. "You're burning up again," Lucien murmured as his clawed hand brushed Kairo's cheek. The idol had been feverish for hours, his body rejecting and absorbing demonic energy all at once. Their child wasn't human, and the toll was evident. "I'm fine," Kairo tried to say, but his breath hitched as another sharp cramp flared in his abdomen. He curled in on himself, his arms cradling his stomach protectively. Lucien knelt beside him, his expression unreadable, but his tail lashed in the background, betraying his fury. "They're trying to harm you," he growled low. "The Celestials are aware now. The balance has shifted. You carrying my air, it's rewriting the rules that even hell fears." Kairo looked up, sweat on his brow, his lips pale. "Then let it rewrite." The demon let out a sound between a scoff and a growl. "You foolish, glorious little flame," he whispered and pressed a kiss to Kairo's temple. "You'd defy heaven itself for this child." "I already have," Kairo murmured. "I defied my own life the moment I stepped into yours." The pregnancy awakened a need in Kairo, one that left him breathless, his senses heightening, emotions sharpening like a blade. He felt every brush of Lucien's hands tenfold. Every stolen glance from his demon left him trembling. His cravings weren't for food nor sleep, they were for Lucien, for his body, for his magic, for his darkness. One evening, as rain pelted down upon Lucien's obsidian glass fortress, Kairo stood in the demon's massive bath chamber, steam rising around him. Lucien entered, surprised. "You shouldn't be walking alone." Kairo turned, his wet hair clinging to his back, his swollen stomach rounding out beneath the silk robe that barely clung to him. His voice came soft, pleading. "Then walk with me." Lucien's eyes darkened, his steps predatory. "Kairo, touch me." The words were a whisper, but they summoned thunder. Lucien didn't hesitate. In an instant, he was behind Kairo, his hands spanning his hips, pulling him back into his chest, wings arching above them like a cage. His mouth found the singer's neck, trailing kisses that burned. "You're sure?" "I'll die if you don't." That night, they didn't just make love. They bound themselves tighter than any oath. Lucien's body worshipped Kairo's, careful around his growing belly, but relentless in his devotion. He marked him anew, kissed every freckle, every scar, every inch of skin. It wasn't just heat, it was reverence, worship. The next morning, the sky was red. Lucien stood at the highest spire of his realm, horns gleaming as he stared beyond the horizon. His lieutenants gathered behind him, weapons drawn, their faces taut with anticipation. "The Council of Thorns has made their move," Azareth, Lucien's second-in-command, said. "They do not approve of the union. They seek to extract the child before it is born." Lucien didn't flinch. "Let them come." Kairo watched from behind the veil of Lucien's chamber balcony. He clutched the banister, trembling not from fear, but from the war building inside his soul. His dreams were haunted now, not by demons, but angels. Faces he once adored in stained glass, now sneering down at him like he was filth. He woke screaming most nights, Lucien always the first to hold him. "You're not cursed," Lucien would whisper again and again, as if trying to convince himself too. "You're chosen." As Kairo's belly grew, so did the signs of the child's immense power. Objects floated around him without warning. His voice, once melodic, could now shatter glass or lull even demons into sleep. He was glowing, literally. At times his body radiated faint golden light, mixed with the shadows that clung to Lucien's presence. He was becoming something new, not human, not demon, a vessel of both. But the further the pregnancy progressed, the more fragile Kairo became. His ankles swelled, his emotions became unbearable. One evening, after screaming at Lucien for merely moving a vase, he broke down in sobs in the demon's arms. "I don't know who I am anymore," he cried. "I don't recognize this face, this body." Lucien kissed the tears from his eyes. "You're mine. You're the flame that burned through the veil, and no matter what you become, I'll kneel to you still." That night, Kairo asked Lucien to take him again. But this time, it wasn't in desperation. It was in longing. Another night, another mark. Lucien took his time, laying Kairo down on sheets of black silk, pressing kisses over his swollen belly. Every scar, every stretch, every change, they make you divine. Kairo's hand wove into Lucien's hair, pulling him closer. "Then worship me." Lucien did. His mouth explored him with a fervent hunger, his hands never once forgetting the life Kairo carried. They moved together slowly, bodies tangled in sweat and reverence, Kairo crying out not in pain, but in release. Lucien whispered sacred words in a forgotten tongue as he reached climax, words that bound their souls tighter. And when Kairo came undone, it wasn't just pleasure. It was prophecy. Here begins part 4 asterisk of your asterisk BL Idle Times Demon asterisk story. Lucien and Kairo asterisk S final chapter, written in novel-style narration. This is a asterisk very lengthy asterisk continuation from part 3, where Kairo is now fully pregnant, Lucien is growing more obsessive, their love is overwhelming, and dark forces are closing in. This part includes deep emotional closure, sensual intensity, and a dramatic conclusion, culminating their forbidden love. The scent of blood was no longer just from the battlefield. It lingered in the shadows of the palace, seeping through the walls like a curse, blending with the sweetness of life blooming within Kairo's womb. Lucien stood outside their chamber, his blood-soaked cape trailing behind him like a second skin, the tips still crackling from the fire he had summoned to burn down an entire faction of rebel demons. The room beyond that golden door was sacred. His Kairo slept there. Their child, his heir, grew there. And the demon king would burn down every realm if anyone dared to touch even the air that brushed against them. "Kairo," he murmured under his breath, fangs still out, claws retracted only barely. He pushed the door open. Inside, Kairo sat upright, his belly now heavy, the roundness straining his silky robe. Even now, fragile, exhausted, glowing, he looked ethereal, otherworldly, not meant for a place like hell. Lucien's heart, what little remained of it, cracked. "You're late," Kairo whispered teasingly, but his eyes were rimmed red. He'd been crying again. The pregnancy made his emotions wild, unfiltered, and overwhelming. Lucien's boots clicked softly as he approached, then dropped to his knees before the idol. His claws cupped Kairo's swollen belly as he rested his head against it. "I killed them all," he said, voice low. "The ones who spoke of stealing our child, the ones who whispered curses behind our backs." Kairo gently ran his fingers through Lucien's ink-black hair. "You always come back bleeding. I always come back to you." He looked up, and for the first time in weeks, the Demon King wept. Only for Kairo, only in this room, only now. Weeks passed, the child grew, so did the storm. Lucien rarely left the palace anymore. The kingdoms could fall, the underworld could rot, he didn't care. His world was Kairo. But the demon realm was rebelling. The idea of a half-human heir, a celestial-born bearer carrying the next demon king, was blasphemy, heresy. Some called it a curse, some called it prophecy. Lucien called it his salvation. He stood guard every night now. No generals, no guards. Just him outside Kairo's chamber, blade in hand, ready to destroy heaven, earth, and hell if they dared touch what was his. Inside the chamber, Kairo's body changed rapidly. The pregnancy was not ordinary. His powers spiked during the night, sometimes glowing too brightly, other times convulsing in pain from the energy growing within. "Is it normal?" he whispered once when Lucien entered in the early dawn. Lucien walked in, kneeling beside the bed, kissing Kairo's belly. "No," he said, "nothing about you is normal. You are beyond the laws of gods and demons." That night, Lucien took Kairo into his arms again, gently but possessively. The sensual heat between them had never disappeared, but now it had deepened, darkened, intensified. Kairo craved Lucien's touch more than ever, the only thing grounding him, the only thing making his body feel like his own again. And Lucien was no longer the cruel, dominant beast from the beginning. He worshipped every inch of Kairo now. His mouth followed the stretch marks forming along Kairo's thighs. His claws traced gently along the soft swell of his stomach. He kissed the veins that had darkened from magic. He murmured "mine" into the deepest hollow of Kairo's moans. He still claimed him, still bred him slowly, possessively, but now, it was not about power. It was about belonging. about making sure Kairo remembered that no part of him was unloved, even the parts warped by the weight of life growing inside. They made love as if war wasn't at their doorstep. And that night, Lucien felt something else, a kick. He froze. Kairo looked down with wide eyes. Lucien. Lucien's face twisted with something too raw to name. He dropped his lips to Kairo's stomach again, trembling. Our child, he breathed. And for the first time in Lucien's immortal life, he believed in miracles. The war finally reached the palace. It started with a storm. Black clouds that raged with divine fire. A celestial army had broken into hell, intending to reclaim Kairo, the one who was never meant to be a bearer, never meant to be touched by demons. Lucien stood atop the highest tower, his wings unfurled, face emotionless. I'll kill them all, he said to the wind, even if I have to die. Kairo, hidden in the inner sanctum, could feel it, the shift in Lucien's aura, the way his soul began preparing for death. No, he whispered, pressing a hand to his belly. No, please. He tried to stand. His legs were weak. The baby was close, almost ready. The pressure was building. The contractions had begun early. His powers surged. Boom. The palace trembled. Outside, Lucien faced the celestial soldiers, sword drawn, wings blazing. You will not take him, he growled. He carries a holy soul, the angelic commander said. He is a vessel, not your mate. Lucien smiled bitterly. He is mine, he chose me, and he carries our child. You would destroy creation for him. Lucien grinned, baring his fangs. I would burn every star to keep him warm. And then the skis exploded. Inside, Kairo fell to his knees. His water had broken. Screams tore from his throat as the contractions grew unbearable. He was alone. Lucien was outside. There was no time. But Kairo was no ordinary bearer. He lit the room with holy fire. His powers created a barrier of light and shadow, protecting the unborn child. He bled, he cried, he begged. But he didn't break. And when the pain reached its peak, when the veil between worlds cracked, Lucien burst through the door, bloodied and broken, dragging the corpses of angels behind him. Kairo, he screamed. And Kairo, sobbing, looked up at him. It's time, he whispered. Lucien didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees, cradled his mate, and with one hand glowing dark and the other glowing white, he helped bring their child into the world, surrounded by flames and prayers. The moment the baby cried, the palace lit up in divine light. The war stopped, the realms silenced, and hell welcomed its new ruler. 1 year later, Lucien sat on the obsidian throne, but his crown rested in Kairo's lap. Their child, a boy with eyes of gold and wings of fire, slept against Kairo's chest. The kingdoms no longer rebelled, because no one could deny the power of love that broke every law of heaven and hell. Lucien often refused to speak in court, because his heart was always somewhere else, trailing after Kairo's laughter, buried in their baby's heartbeat, etched into every kiss shared in the privacy of their garden. Do you still think I cursed you? Lucien asked one night, curling his tail around Kairo beneath the stars. Kairo smiled, nuzzling against his chest. No, he whispered. You saved me, you ruined me, you made me more than just a star. Lucien grinned, fangs glinting. And you made me more than just a monster. Kairo giggled. You were never a monster, Lucien. Lucien's eyes darkened. But I'll always be yours. And as the night deepened and the stars above flickered, they kissed again, slow, deep, unending. Because their love had survived damnation. Their child carried both light and darkness. And their story was now legend.